Hi there, Isha here, and welcome to The Higher Life, where I take concepts that are considered esoteric, new age, spiritual, and psychological, and show you how you can unpack these and apply them in a way that can greatly empower your life. But at the core of the work here, what we're really talking about is personal power. What is it? How can we apply it? How can we cultivate it? And when you do this, you're really living in what would be called an empowered way. So you could say that this work guides you along the empowered way of being human in the world and feeling really self-assured and able to access what is genuine power rather than feel like a victim of the power structures that currently run our world. And it's really important to then understand what are the core attributes of personal power or living in an empowered way. And I believe there are three. And when you understand and really embody these three attributes or qualities of an empowered life, you can see how we are really designed to operate at three levels of reality. So these three attributes, what are they? Well, the first one is our physicality and the limitations that being in a physical body naturally creates. So you could say the first attribute is limitation. Of course, we're born into a physical body, onto an earth plane that has lots of boundaries and limits. We can't do more than our physical bodies allow. We have constraints and they're natural. So if you believe, as I do, that we kind of are a spiritual, energetic presence that is contained inside a physical body, that first the physicality or the body construct creates a natural limitation of what we can and can't achieve, for example, or the way our energy gets used. It's really interesting when you start to explore what is your relationship to limitation. Because in modern culture, we love this concept of no limits, no boundaries, you can do everything. You know, we love to look at human beings who really transcend limitations. However, there is a part of being really joyful, happy, and healthy in this world that requires a radical acceptance of the natural limitations of being human in a human body that ages, and that we're born into this physicality in really diverse and unique ways. Not all bodies operate the same, and we know that. We only have to look out in the world to see what a huge variance there is in the limitations and the physicality of each human being. And that's what makes for a diverse and enriching humanity. The second one is a really interesting one, and it's the one that I work with a lot. And this is what would be called emotional resilience. We need to be resilient in a way that our emotions, which are high energy or high charge energetic patterns, can move through our system with ease, effortlessly. Because emotional intelligence is a way that we are communicated to by the outside world, by our inner world, but we need a certain amount of tolerance. If you're not emotionally resilient, you can't actually stay the course to get the insight that emotions are often offering you. Because we live in a highly reactive and overstimulated culture or modern life, it can be very difficult to actually cultivate the kind of inner resilience one needs to be tolerant of their emotional landscape. However, it's work that I believe has had radical advancements. You know, if you look out into psychology, into therapy, into personal spirituality, even in the business world where meditation and other tools that allow you to cultivate a better relationship with the natural charged nature of emotions, you can see that this is a kind of general awakening that is happening. We do understand that our emotions can hijack our thoughts, our beliefs, our behaviors, and lead to quite destructive outcomes. You know, we see that across the world right now, where highly charged old stories are recreating a lot of destruction and death and violence through this really emotionally charged way of being in the world. We could say it's an emotionally charged way of being as opposed to an empowered way of being. And the third attribute is psychological well-being. And I like to do a little play on words here. We need to be a psychologically well-being. So we have these three elements. We have limitation, we have resilience, and we have well-being. And they operate in three different realms or three different levels of reality. So we have the physicality, the one that, we're in this body, we share this physical world with other life forms, with other human beings. We understand that we share this planet together. We interact in a very physical way. And this physicality has certain limitations around it. Then we move into this next level of reality, which is not really physical. It's very difficult to see it or to touch it, but we're aware of it. We experience it through charges in our body, through sensations, and even through thoughts that arrive that are related to these charges in our body, like I am scared, I am happy, I am joyful. That's that emotional reality or energetic reality. And then we have this capacity to conceptualize the mind. And if you have an unhealthy psychology, then you'll conceptualize in an unhealthy way. That is, those physical limitations that are natural will create an anxiety and emotional response to those limitations that then get conceptualized as a problem that needs to be solved by the modern mind. And that problem solving usually aligns with some sort of story that your culture has conditioned you into, in which that gives you some sort of opinion on what the source of that problem is. And we operate like this. This is how we've been programmed and conditioned to live. And it's a very disempowering way to live, because we really operate out of old stories and cultural conditioning, something that we're becoming way more aware of as each field that discusses the human psyche and human potential starts to advance out into this territory of understanding the relationship between mind, the relationship between body and spirit, which we could assume is that emotional, energetic space. So we really need to evolve in terms of how we operate as human beings on the planet. And that evolution would be called the empowered way. It would require choosing a spiritually driven life. That is, the capacity to develop your resilience for life by being having a very well psychology or a healthy psychology, by being resilient in terms of tolerating your emotional landscape so you can actually learn from your emotions and manage them and process them and be enriched by them. It's like boot camp. And we don't learn how to do this at school or in our families. In fact, we learn the opposite. Our minds are very early programmed to conceptualize into storytelling and into promoting our ego or our socially conditioned self out into the world. But that's a whole nother lesson. In this lesson, what I really wanted to nut down is these 3 attributes and to let you play around with those in your life. If you think that there is one core wisdom that can really fundamentally transform your life for the better, it is this one: that you are bound by limitations. We can understand that as a physicality, that emotional resilience is the true meaning of resilience. It is not about endurance, enduring your life, or going out and overcoming adversity. It's really about cultivating an inner resourcefulness to tolerate the range of emotions, highs and lows, the wave we call it, until that wave has fully moved through and you can distill the clarity that is revealed once you've had that whole spectrum happen. This is a kind of learning process. And finally, we need to get clear about how our psychology works and have a very well and healthy psychology. Now, unfortunately, most of us are born into family systems with an unhealthy or dysfunctional psychology. And that is that's not culturally specific. That's a universal issue. It's a human issue. We all have this dysfunctional psychology operating where our ego self seems to be the self that we think is real. And we do everything in our lives to support the needs of this ego. And it's a very socially conditioned self, and therefore it's not very authentic. What we want to be doing is living from our authenticity or our true self. However, it's a journey of unraveling out of this really tight conditioning that we have spent most of our childhood being conditioned into or educated into. So we need to take that journey of becoming very aware of how our psychology has been programmed, how it operates in really dysfunctional ways. And we usually enter into it either through some sort of limitation or limiting experience in our everyday lives that has asked us to think differently or feel differently. And we don't really know how to do it, so we seek out solutions. I mean, obviously my journey as a transformational life coach and my personal journey, like years ago, has been motivated by that very seeking. But at some point you kind of realize there's nothing out there that's going to answer to this, and you have to dig a little deeper and turn inwards and start to understand, well, what's going on in me? What's going on in my everyday life? What kind of patterns and attributes and qualities seem to be very consistent in the way I show up to life? It's a whole journey. And eventually you start to become more tolerant and more resilient about the way you think, feel, and act. And then you start to become more of an expert on your inner world and finally reach a level of mastery. And through this, the physical limitations in which you're born into become a gift, a blessing, a relief that you don't have to transcend them, that you can embrace them and actually illuminate out of that limitation rather than seeing it as a problem that you need to solve or an advancement that you need to make or a betterment. We love betterment in modern Western culture, and it's exhausting. Everyone I've met is exhausted by bettering themselves. It's horrible. It just creates a whole lot of anxiety about all the ways that you still could do better. And then you end up, leaving this world without appreciating all the beautiful things that you've experienced in the person that you are. So on a final note, this is going to be really tough work to really work out who you are, what you feel, what matters to you, how to appreciate more the day-to-day passing of ordinary life. I find that before I go to bed at night, I often contemplate if I died in my sleep. And I help my clients with this. How would I feel about the way I'd spent my day? And I don't mean it through a judgment lens of, oh, that was good, that was bad. I just consider the people that I spent my day with, the ways that I showed up, the little interactions I had. And I would think, do I feel okay with it? Just okay. And most of the time, I've made some conscious choices in my life to really prioritize this period. I've just turned 50, but I've been raising children for the last 15 years. And my mother role has been my primary role, even though this personal spirituality and personal empowerment has also been a baby of mine, one could say. I've spent a lot of time on it. But for me, if I died in my sleep, and sometimes, often, frequently, I've had really rough days, where my teenage daughter thinks I'm the worst mother ever. I feel like I can't get it quite right. I don't gel with my husband. My son is all over me and really needy, and I'm thinking this is shit. When I go to sleep and I think about that, I think I'm so glad that I spent my day like that. It doesn't matter how bad it gets or how bickering the kids are. I'll know that I'm glad I was there and present to it. But that's me personally. Other people may have a completely different storyline. And, you've got to find your personal storyline. I'm not one to promote motherhood as the ideal storyline. I think it takes, you have to want to grow spiritually, and that has to be part of your path. I think if you choose to be a parent, because it's bloody hard work and it really triggers you and tests you, it's not necessarily a fun path. I think there are many other ways as human beings and as women that we could spend our human lives that would be enriching and joyful and fulfilling, that have nothing to do with raising other people or service or being married or any of those things. However, this is a beautiful exercise to find out what matters to you. And it's often the small, mundane, unimportant, unassuming things that you'll feel glad that you did if you were to die. And it's often the really big stuff that we're, told are so amazing at writing books or being a CEO, all these things that you couldn't give a shit about if you're about to die. You wouldn't care less. So I think it's a beautiful way to go to sleep at night, to make peace with yourself. And you know what? If you didn't enjoy the way you spent your day, or you wish you'd done something different, luckily you'll probably have another few days or another few months or another few decades to try it out. So it's better to start now and make those changes and get really insightful than live a whole life in your cultural conditioning, then die or be sick and really regret that you didn't do this work earlier on. I believe that the empowered way, living from personal power, is the highest potential of humanity at this time, and that we are all being called forth to really align with this evolution and to educate ourselves on our inner worlds and the true nature of our authenticity and personal power. So if you find this stuff interesting, if it's a pathway that, called out to you at this point in your life, absolutely check out the courses at Higher Life Academy or more episodes at Higher Life TV. I do so much free stuff that can get you on your way. So until next time, take care and love life.